Hey, it's Rob and welcome to Axel's Garage, where it rains every time we get set up to do some work outside. So, where we're at here, part 2. Part 1 I will link right up there, hopefully. Hopefully I remember. I've been doing a lot of this and not remembering to put the little thing, whatever. So, the last time we broke everything down, kind of ran out of daylight, had to get one of these pipes here for the water pump. So we got everything broken down, and then the weekend got away from me. Got dark, then it rained. Then I said I'm gonna power wash it, so I power washed the entire car. There was like mold and scourge on it, just a neglected vehicle. Power washed the engine compartment, we pushed it out of the way, and it's been about a week or so. Set up twice already today, and as soon as I get set up ready to go, it starts raining, and I think I got a break in the weather enough to at least get it partially finished, if not completely done. So what I did here was put the new pipe in. The new pipe, and I'll link everything we use in the description below, but the new pipe here, and not a rotted pitted one like our old one, comes with a little thread sealant on it. I put a little Teflon tape over it because the thread sealant really wasn't on there nice and consistent. So I tightened it up and got it good and tight, and then brought it around, because it's got to go back that way to hit the heater hose, and I brought it around to like there. And then what you do is you take it and you put it up in place where it will be on the engine, and you see how far off you are, and you can tighten it a little bit more and then line it up, and if you're not there yet, tighten it a little bit more. You want to favor the weaker side, so that, because once you get it bolted up, you could always tighten it just a little bit, but you don't really want to loosen it because it's a pipe fitting here, and you don't want this to leak, because if this leaks, the only way to reseal it is to take the whole water pump out again, and then you're doing the water pump job all over again. So that's what we did. We put it up. It took us twice, and we got it pretty close. We might have to give it a little scooch clockwise just to bring this over a little bit more, but we'll get it all mounted up first in the meantime. So we got our gasket surfaces nice and clean. Gasket scraped off. I went in there with a little wire whizzer and got it all nice and clean. Any of the residual flash rust that came and grew on it during the week, I knocked that off as well. My bolts, as you can see, I have all my bolts here for everything we took apart. Hit them on the wire wheel on the bench grinder, and gave them just a light coating of the synthetic white lithium grease that I use on every bolt pretty much, except for bolts that you can't grease, so you have to put thread sealer on. It's just to make it easier for the next guy, because that's my motto. The next guy may very well be you, and especially on a Jeep, especially here in New York, where they just brine the crap out of the roads, everything gets rusty. Why fight with it in the future? So I have here my water pump gasket and my water pump. Now the water pump that I'm using today is a high flow or high volume or high, it's just not the stock one, whatever it might be. I'll link it in the description below. It costs about double what the stock replacement pump is, but those of you that have these know that sometimes cooling can be an issue, so I figured, I might as well go for the air quote better one. So in the directions for the pump, it does say to use a thin film of sealer on the gasket. It's a pretty thick gasket. In these particular applications, I like to just use any really RTV silicone. I have the ultra black here just because that's what I happen to have open already. And I'm just going to use my finger. I'm going to wipe a thin coating on both sides of the gasket, and we're going to start mounting this stuff up. Alright, so what I like to do is just take a random piece of cardboard, take my gasket. I know the gasket's going to go this way with the big hole opening up in like the 10, 30, 11 o'clock position, just like that when it goes on the front of the block. So, and it's the same, both sides it's not the same. You can see how you got a long one and a short one. So, we're going to give both sides a coating of this RTV, and usually what I'll do is I'll put a glob right there, right in the middle, and I'm just going to put my finger in it and gonna put a thin coating on both sides, just like that, and then flip it right over. See if I got enough left. I might have shorted myself on my blob here. And I'll put a little bit more of a blob there. With one finger holding it in place. All right, a nice smear. Now what I'll do is I'll just hang it off the edge. So I got a spot to grab. All right, so I'll grab the water pump now and look on the back side, and I got my short leg here, my long leg here, so I can see which way the gasket goes. Grab the gasket and just get it right over and on like that. Trying to keep it as neat as possible just because I like to. Rag here. Now if you remember from the first video when we were putting this all together, or taking it all apart I should say, we had a short bolt, short bolt, short bolt, and then a long bolt. So looking at our bolts, I see my 3 shorties. So I'm going to take a shorty that's easy to get at, and another shorty that's easy to get at to hold the gasket in place. I could even throw the long one that's kind of easy to get at too. I'll grab this long one and I'll stick that in like that. Now I got it. At least I'm holding the gasket in place. So the bolts are poking through. Now I could slide this. Get a bolt started by hand. And just get them in a thread or two so I know I have my gasket didn't fall out of place, and I just got them started a thread or two. I believe these are with 13s. They were. So I'll take a little socket on an extension and just make sure all of them are in nicey nice. So with my 4 bolts in, I am just gonna run them in just a little at a time. All right, and I'm just doing that on there until they seat with this is the low power electric one. And then I'll come in with a torque wrench and I will torque them down to about 30 foot-pounds. All right, so after torquing them down, the water pump is in. So now you can look at this pipe here, and as it comes up, you know, I've been watching so much Vice Grip Garage lately, I want to say pipe later, but you look at this pipe here and you can sort of eyeball whether or not you're on, or if you got to turn it a little bit. If you turn it a little bit, it pulls the pipe in this way, and You could grab this with a open end 3/4, and you could pull it in if you need to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change gears from here, and I'm going to get this hose, these two hoses, the heater hoses, and I'll get the old ones out, the new ones in, so that this is on there, and I know this is good before I add anything else over here, so that I can adjust this if I need to adjust this. And then we'll go to the lower hose, because that's the next hardest thing to get at, and then we'll start with everything else. So I didn't tighten it down or anything, I just dry fit the hose in place. This shorter hose that goes to the pipe goes to the bottom of your heater core. So I got the clamp just sitting there. The hose fits in exactly how it's supposed to, and it's a nice smooth run. I don't have to bring this way or this way. The pipe is in the right spot. And now I can tighten up my clamps, and then I can run the top hose over on this side without tightening it, because we don't have the thermostat housing to go for the top hose over there. So actually we'll put the thermostat housing on first, and then we'll put the top hose on. That makes more sense, and it should make it for a little cleaner and neater. So we got our new thermostat housing, our gasket, right? The housing goes in this direction here, and we also have a pipe plug in where the coolant temperature sensor needs to go. So I'm going to pull the, actually I'll just put it all together like this, and then we'll pull the pipe plug out at the end. And of course our thermostat, which is going to go in this way, like that, and you want it sort of on the same angle that the hose is going. So angled like that. I don't know if there's a marking, a top marking. Some of them have a top marking on them, but you know, some people say just to put it so that the window is straight up and down. I was always taught that it should be in line with your pipe for your best flow and least amount of turbulence. So right like that. And same thing with the gasket. I'm going to use my cardboard over here, and I'm going to put just a smooth smidge of silicone on both sides of the gasket. All right, so I got my thermostat housing. Find the bolts. I got one short one and one long one. So there's my long one. All the bolts have been, like I said, cleaned and lubed. There's my short one. This short one is the same as the short water pump bolts. All right. The only trick to this one is just make sure you don't knock your thermostat off like I just did. Slide it back into that same spot, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this in like that, so I know the thermostat didn't move, and then I'll start the bolts. Just make sure when you're putting this on that you know your thermostat didn't fall out of place, out of that groove. If you know, then you know. If you're not sure, take it off and make sure. And I like to do both of them nice and even. There's my 30. And there's my 30. That's it. Now I can go ahead and fish this upper heater hose through. See, when I figure out which way to put the clamp, whether it be this way or this way, try to, I mean, just a hint is try to put it in a spot where once everything is assembled, you can always tighten it. You know, if it starts to leak or whatever. Sometimes during the seasonal changes, they start to leak a little and you got to give them a little tighten. Put it in a spot where you'll be able to get to it. Don't don't put it in a spot where it's harder to tighten when everything is assembled. Just makes the job harder for yourself. Now these upper and lower hoses were replaced when we first got this Jeep. So I'm just trying to find the sort of like the witness marks in the original hose there, so I can get it in the same spot. And then I'll come over and I'm going to tighten up the rest of the heater hoses. Well, it's the next day. I wound up doing some work talking to the camera, and the camera was off because the battery was dead. And then the skies opened up, and there goes for the day. That was the third time I set up. So today, the next day, it's a little cooler, but it's nice, and I'll show you what I got done when the battery was dead. I was talking to nobody. All right, so I got the power steering pump back in place, bolted up the same way it came off. The pulley that adjusts the belt, I actually refinished it during the week that we were off and lubed everything up so that it slides nice and moves nice. All my bulbs are lubed up. I took the plug out of here. It was like an 8mm Allen, and cleaned off the tip of the coolant temperature sensor, put some Teflon tape in it, and tighten that back up. All my belts are, all my hoses are on. Now I got to put the pulley on the water pump and got to get the belt on, and then we can start buttoning it all up. So in the week that we were on a break, I did take a wire wheel to all the brackets and pulleys that I had removed and gave them a quick coating of paint. And of course this one, tape's not coming off easy. I taped off where the belt rides so that we wouldn't have any problem there. Now if you remember, when this pulley was on the old water pump, we had a fight to get it off. So I'm just going to put a little smear right over here of some synthetic white grease that I use for everything. Just a thin smear, just to give it a coating so it doesn't rust up to it shouldn't rust because I painted it, but you never know. A couple dabs of the white grease, and I'm just gonna plenty there.
Oh, I have to come up these things?
So with the pulley snugged up, I can't get it tight unless I, put a pry bar in there like when I loosened it. So I'm going to put the belt on, tighten the belt up, and hopefully the belt will hold that pulley in place so that I can tighten it down just a little bit more. Up on that. Now it goes down. Alright, that would have been a real pain in the neck to figure out without the diagram. Tightened it up just a little bit, and then I retightened the pulley down there to make sure that that wasn't out of position too much. I didn't tighten it, I just kind of took the slack out. Then I'm going to tighten the belt again, and then I'm going to feel over here where I have my longest runs, and you want about a 1/2 inch of play in there, so I could probably go just a hair more. That doesn't feel too bad. So I'm going to leave that pulley here. I'm not going to tighten this down till the end because I might have to make another adjustment somewhere. So now I'm going to take a regular ratchet and see if I can get these pulley bolts tight, and maybe the belt will hold the pulley in place. Oh yeah. Hose are all tight. This pulley is snug. What I'm going to do right here is I'm just going to start the car for a second to let this belt center on the pulleys where it rides on the backside, and then I'll tighten that pulley down, make sure the belt's tight. Once you fill the radiator up, I don't go through this strange bleeding process that a lot of people do. I fill the radiator up, and then I fill the overflow up to full cold, and then let it run, check for leaks, and before I button it up today, I'll top that overflow off at full cold, and then let it go through some heating and cooling cycles during the week, and then top it off in a couple days. You really don't need to go through that whole bleeding thing. I think the bleeding thing is a little strange, to be honest. So I'm going to start it up, and let's see if we have any leaks. Alright, got up to operating temperature. Check them for any leaks. Pressure should build a little bit now, so if I have any leaks, they should surface. The hoses all look nice and dry. Water pump looks nice and dry. Belts are all riding on the pulleys nice the way they should, so I'm happy with that. So now we got to put the electric fan in and the shroud. Now, if you remember when we were taking this apart, we were having a lot of trouble with those clips. So what I am going to do is take these original rusted clips out, and I'm going to replace them with the smallest ones I can find at my hardware store, which are a little bigger, but they will fit in the hole. One goes there, this one goes here. Alright, so I got the clips in place. Should be able to slide this in nice. Make sure these fit through. They don't. So I'm just going to open up these holes just a little bit. So I was once again talking to myself the entire time. We put the shroud in, the fan shroud on the electric fan. Electric fan's got to go in first because you need to sort of get it in the middle and then slot it over. And then your regular fan shroud, you got your overflow hose that goes through some loops that along the top. And that's it, no leaks. I'll let it go through a couple of heating and cooling cycles and then top off my fluid. You really don't need to bleed it like people bleed like crazy.